Okay, hi everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are going to talk all things outsourcing your go-to-market. So when to and when not to outsource your GTM, sales, marketing, everything in between. I'm so excited to chat with our panel today. They're all experts that are going to share their stories, maybe some secrets, we'll see. But I'd love to have everybody go down and introduce yourself 30 seconds or less so we can get into the meat of the conversation. And anyone in the audience, just add your questions, share questions in the chat box or in questions, and we will get to them. So Matt, let's start with you. Quick intro.
Great. My name is Matt Ois. I work for a company called TechCXO. This is my 14th year, which means I started when I was 5. We are fractional executives. So imagine like your fractional chief financial officer, chief revenue officer, etc. And there's 120 partners, and we've been around for about 20 years. And so I'm in our revenue growth practice. The 14 years have been mainly doing fractional and interim chief revenue officer, chief sales officer. And what's really great and interesting about us is we're also operators. So we don't deliver a 4-inch document of what you should do, but we actually sit around to make sure you get the ROI. And that creates wonderful long-term relationships with our clients.
Love it. So TechCXO is fractional before fractional became the trend, the OGs. 100%. All right, Whitney, a little intro for you, please.
Hey, I'm Whitney, or Whit. I'm the CEO of Zwar. We build a data experience platform that helps power your BI and AI centers of excellence. We work a lot with fast-growing companies and ever-changing, especially in mid-market and small enterprise.
Love it. You'll have lots of stories, I'm sure.
Yeah. Definitely a lot of what not to do as you're building the plane as it's flying. Yeah.
As we all do, for sure. And John Norton, John, number one, let's go. Let's hear from you.
Yeah, hello everyone. John Norton, I'm the Chief Revenue Officer for IntraDM. Been with IntraDM for about 2 years. I've been in 2 other CRO roles, about 3 decades, working with high-performing sales and revenue teams in tech, and happy to be here.
Love it. Thanks, John. Appreciate it. John number 2, John Fitzpatrick. We're going to call him Fitz for today for clarity. Would love a little intro from you, Fitz.
Absolutely. John Fitzpatrick, Force Marketing. We're a marketing technology business specializing in the automotive industry. And we work with about 16 of the large OEMs, think Mercedes-Benz, Porsche, Kia, North America, and the like, and about 1,400 of their retail dealer partners across North America. And we're glad to be here.
Love it. Thank you so much. So as you can see, we have a variety of different perspectives, different positions. And if you take a look at their LinkedIn, which I highly recommend you go connect with everyone here on LinkedIn, you'll see their amazing resumes. So last and least, myself, I'll be moderating this amazing panel today, the CMO at memoryBlue. We are outsourced sales, so outsourced SDRs and AEs, so we can help you fill your pipeline gaps. But let's kick it off. I'd love to start. Let's see. Matt, I'm going to start with you. You, over the past 14 years at TechCXO, you've worked with so many clients. Where have you seen clients or even prospects that you've spoken with just bringing in or looking into bringing in fractional C-suite execs at the wrong time versus the right time?
So I would say that the right time is when there is when things aren't lining up, right? When you are you've tried what you've tried, and what has gotten you here isn't going to get you there, and you just need a partner to help you make that transformation, understand where the gap is, what's keeping you from being successful. And so sometimes it's from a strategic perspective, but sometimes it's from a tactical perspective, like modernizing process, modernizing tooling, right? So it's where, what are we missing from our strategy? But on the execution side, what systems and processes and tech do we need to put in place in order to move the needle forward? So whenever, I would say when things are going great, a fractional executive doesn't make sense. When you have budget and availability for full-time people and you're going to keep them busy and you simply don't need access to that much firepower, a fractional executive makes great sense.
Yeah. Have you seen also, I've seen a lot of my colleagues when they have bring in a fractional CRO or CMO, it's a great way to plug in a gap while they're looking for a full-time role for that position. And it's great to have a fractional exec help find that person and fill that role because they know exactly what the company needs after some time there. Is that accurate or what you see as well?
I see that a lot. A lot of times they know they have some capability that they need to build. But sometimes the person that's going to drive the race car isn't the same person that's going to help you retool the engine. And so sometimes they'll bring somebody like me or one of my colleagues in, and we'll sort of help them make that step change in capability. And then we'll help them find their full-time person and then make sure that they're well onboarded so that there's a gentle landing. And then we go off into the sunset and help others.
Yeah. Well, the car example is a perfect segue to Fitz, where you've brought in fractional execs many times, and I'm sure as well the execution side of things. When do you see it working best, or versus like, do you have any stories on the good side or the bad side, lessons learned that you can share with us?
Yeah, I think, Matt, you're not giving yourself and the team enough credit. I think there's a play in the good times and the bad times. I'll give you an example. Or I wouldn't say bad times. I am an internal optimist. I don't see bad times. I just see opportunities. So that's just me. But on, for the last 15 years, we thought we needed a fractional CFO, and we reached out to TechCXO. And I was even a little concerned about bringing that in because it's a CFO. It's financially driven. It's a really, really important gig. And I don't want that to be fractional. And he said, you'll never feel like it's fractional. And here we are 15 years later, 10x the size of the business, and nobody knows that our CFO is not on our payroll. Not a single per of 134 people in 29 states. None of them know that. Maybe unless until they watch this webinar, in which case it wouldn't matter, right? Because he's doing such a great job. Same thing with our VP of Finance. Same thing with Matt when we brought him in for executive coaching. And to help us sort of figure some things out with leveling up folks, which I think oftentimes in fast growing businesses, when you go from a $30 million business to a $60 million business, you have totally different challenges. And, are your folks rising at the same pace that the business is? Oftentimes the answer is no. And so my belief is, well, let's coach them and level them up before we, level them out. And they've been a great resource for that. So there's a variety of different ways the fractional works. And I don't think it's a one size fits all. I don't think it's good times versus bad times. I think it's just the pace of the business, right? I coach Little League Baseball, and it's like, hey, sometimes I just got to change the pitcher out. And I got to have different feels of the game. And as CEOs, CROs, we know that we're always feeling the game in real time, and having that resource available to you it has been a great power of ours.
Love that. Great context. And Whitney, what roles or areas of the business have you outsourced, and good and bad, that you've seen from it?
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because the idea of, Fitz, what you talk about with changing out the personnel, that's probably the biggest thing. Is I always think of, if we're going to try something new, I want to treat it like an experiment. So I want to know what does good look like? How are we tracking success? And then if it's wrong, how do we fail fast so that we can make changes quickly? And so we have, oddly enough, we've done the same thing with finance on like outsourced accounting. Whenever we moved from cash accounting to GAAP, and then a lot of our kind of management on that side. But whenever we look at marketing motions with SDRs, with advertising agencies, with AEO and SEO strategies, I don't know if this is what others are doing, but I tend to say I want to outsource the experiment. I want to run a pilot, see what works, swap it out, because I'm trusting the expertise is there, find ways to then bring it in-house, and then I'll go back to that partner whenever I'm ready to scale again. So it is this kind of bookended approach where I start with external, pull that in-house, and then go external again whenever I need the power of scale.
Love that. Like, it's similar to the baseball, right? Swapping out the baseball analogy. It's kind of, you're creating that bench and warming them up and then testing them out. Yeah.
Yes. And there is something too about especially if you're trying something you've not done before. I often use the analogy of there's a lot of problems that it feels like you have to learn French to read the shampoo bottle. And so there's a lot of problems when going to market where you're like, I feel like I have to have so much expertise and so much experience, and so much knowledge and so much context to make like a quick call. And so whenever I look externally and I outsource, I'm basically, I might be paying for your time on the contract. What I'm actually buying is the decades you've done this before, so that you already know French. You can just, the shampoo bottle is not a problem. You're actually here doing literature and poetry. So
Yeah. Well, you get Duolingo up and running.
Yes, yes. And so for our business, that ability to make fast decisions quickly, it is so important that you just move and don't get stuck in analysis paralysis.
Yes. Just getting that first step and iterating from there, getting out there. And John, how about you? What have you seen work or not work with outsourcing? What do you think is smart to outsource and when?
I mean, for me, it's like, what functions do I require that have very specific skills that are hard to maintain, hard to manage, hard to scale, hard to keep staffed, right? I'm a huge fan of being fully staffed and having heavily tenured people, right? And when you have that value and all of a sudden someone walks away, you have a hole. Now you got a problem that you weren't counting on during the quarter that you have to execute in, right? That kind of stuff. So, those kinds of roles, I've always looked at outsourcing first because I can move that problem to them, right? And be more consistent. I've had, for example, SDR teams as big as 30. Okay, as big as 30, 40 people. Now I can hire an expert that motivates people every day. I can scale that team up. 3 guys leaving doesn't affect the output, those kinds of things, right? And so I would probably insource at a certain level of scale, but that's one element that I would outsource. Again, with Whitney on SEO and AEO, very specific skills. The cheese keeps moving in those areas. It's harder to know what to do and how to keep up, and you got to be on top of it like crazy. So those are 2 things that we outsource today, and we'll continue to, because we're seeing those values pay off. I mean, in our cold outreach at IntraDM, we have 5 people, right? With 5 people, I couldn't really have an expert to lead that team. I couldn't have someone ringing the bell every day and getting people motivated and keeping trained up and skilled up and all those sorts of things. And what did I see? I saw a dramatic difference in productivity out of that team and the activity level that we were getting out of them. I just needed better oversight, and I needed someone else to push that expertise that could scale. And that's what we found.
Yeah, it's great. You and Whitney both brought up something that resonates with me. I come from the marketing agency world years ago, and now I'm in the professional services side with memoryBlue, but sales. I'm seeing the benefit of having a team that's working on multiple accounts, because they're on top of, like in the marketing world, they're on top of all the changes in platforms, right? Like Meta and Google Ads and how things change. And on the sales side with AI, of course, coming in and disrupting things, we see how outreach has to change, how cadences have to change, how we bring in AI. So seeing that and sharing that internally, where that is your day-to-day gold, that expertise is a lot stronger than when somebody typically is in-house and they're only working on one account and they're not seeing all of these nuances and sharing that with each other across different accounts.
Absolutely.
Great point. I'd love, and this could be from past companies as well, in your tenure, where have each of you seen a lesson that you learned the hard way? It could be you or a peer or someone on your team where outsourcing just didn't work. And that's either from the perspective of providing the services or from hiring, where it doesn't work, or just lessons that we can share with the audience so they don't have to learn the hard way. Go with it. Go.
Yeah, I'll go first, and then John, I'll pass it over to you. I think whenever we were first starting out, because Zwar started out as like a handful of people working out of a duplex. So like true startup. And so whenever we first started thinking about kind kind of outsourcing some of our sales and go-to-market motions to say, could we have someone else doing cold email outreach, someone else doing cold calls? I think at the time, because we were time poor and cash strapped, we made decisions based on pricing and what had the most competitive bid. And we thought, it's okay, we'll try it. It's an experiment. So earlier you heard me say, like, fail fast. We did fail fast. Unfortunately, how we failed is we didn't, I don't even know if it was necessarily, it wasn't the right partner. It was more, we gave over complete control of, here's the message, here's the targets, here's the pitch. Instead of building that with them, we outsourced not the actions and the activity, but also the intent and like the tone. And so we had probably a pretty good sprint where I was getting feedback from my network that I just got a LinkedIn message, I think you guys have been hacked, because it seems kind of scammy. This is something that the idea that whenever you bring in a partner, especially if it's going to be go to market, they are carrying your brand and reputation forward into the marketplace. So even if you're outsourcing the activity, you have to maintain control of the message, that it's in line with your voice, that it's in line with your professional standards of who you contact and how, and what that follow-up looks like, because that impression is going to remain. And especially if you're going in cold, you want strangers to remember you for good reasons, and not because of a really awkward phone conversation or email that they received.
Yes, I've been in the exact same situation when I chose the cheap route, where it's like, okay, we can try this again as a test. And a friend reached out to me saying the same thing. They thought we were hacked or somebody was trying to impersonate us. So
yeah, because sometimes you can feel this pressure of, well, doing something's better than doing nothing. And the reality is that's only true if the something you're doing is intentional and thought out.
Yeah. Don't rush through it. Mm-hmm.
I would add to that by saying, the cheap route, right? I will tell you the genesis or the starting point with memoryBlue was, frankly, you guys all make those claims and none of you deliver, right? I mean, literally. So I've had plenty of experience of disappointment in guaranteed meetings, but you convert 8% of them, right?
Yeah.
All I was successful doing is keeping my salespeople busy, right?
Yep.
So
top of funnel fluff numbers. Yep.
Yeah, and so the learning is really important. There is don't think for a minute because you're outsourcing it that you don't play a role in making them the best they can be at doing what they're committed to doing. Yeah. And you have to be committed to skilling them up, challenging them to understand your message backwards and forward, role play with them, engage them, post conversion of a meeting, in the meeting, all kinds of things that just make them better. And that investment pays off hugely in conversion rates. And that's what I would say at first, is like, the claims were, so I'll just bring you meetings and go. And I was super disappointed with what came from those.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do see that a lot too, right? If somebody comes in and they're like, okay, we're outsourcing, that means we're totally hands off and you got the whole thing from here, that there's a disconnect, and it's very clear internally and externally, unfortunately. So still just working together. I'm sure, Fitz, you see the same, being in the marketing world yourself, that with your clients, you have to do that. So you kind of see both sides here.
Yeah, I think it just comes down to, just like if you were hiring a person, did they blend into your culture, and did you communicate, the expectations properly, and do they know what the company culture is rooted in and what it's all about, and are they then, showcasing that to the world on your behalf? And if they are, it's going to be a good fit, and if they're not, just like a full-time employee, it's not going to be a good fit either. So I just boil it down to that, just the same way you would onboard an FTE, onboard an outsourced person in a similar fashion, get them connected to the people, get them connected to the culture, the communication tactics, the pace of play. And, you should win more than you lose if they're connected.
Yeah.
That's just been my experience.
Have you all seen, go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, there's just there's two like really big learnings that I've picked up over the years. So prior to when I met memoryBlue, which was in about 2021 or 2022, I'd had an experience where, I was in a client and we knew that we wanted, ICP was defined, all set to go, et cetera, et cetera. And we wanted to do this outreach. and we hired an SDR agency because I didn't have anybody in the client who knew how to manage, develop, and scale and make SDR successful. And so we hired this outfit. And the question that I didn't ask was, well, how many people do you have managing, leading, and developing these SDRs? And if I had known, it would have been like a 25-to-1 ratio, and that they were just going to, these 22-year-olds were just dropped off, and, good luck, God bless. And so I was really, really turned off of SDR agencies after that experience because I didn't know to ask the question, which should have been my first question, because this is the thing that I didn't have capability on in my client. Well, fast forward, I, CRO of a fast-growing Amazon Web Services consulting company, and I walked into an existing relationship with memoryBlue, and I walked in pretty skeptical.
Yeah.
But what I saw is like a 3-to-1 or a 4-to-1, where those SDRs were constantly being, educated, developed, coached, et cetera, and it worked really, really well. So that was like a really, really important lesson. Make sure that you're asking the right questions. But I think the second one goes back to Whitney's point about, when she needs to do an experiment, right? She'll do that experiment with somebody else. A lot of people go into an agency or an outsourcing, and they're expecting an ROI. Well, if you're doing an experiment and expecting an ROI, you're going to be disappointed. If you're doing an experiment and you're making an investment in the learning with the hope of great outcomes, good, but that it's going to be, you're making an investment in the learning and the experiment, not in necessarily the results. If you're going in because you're expecting results, then it's a much different sort of factors that you need to bring into that conversation. Because where I've seen a lot of people, fall in the ditch is when they walk in and their ICP is not completely defined. Their go-to-market messaging isn't defined, right? They want to do an experiment because they want to go into a new market or try, an adjacent ICP or et cetera. And not only is that stuff not set up, but they're hiring this experiment and expecting an ROI. And those create really, really short outsource engagements because somebody's going to be really, really disappointed. So just know where you are, know exactly what you're trying to get done, and then have an expectation for the results lined up with what you're really trying to accomplish.
Yes. And share those expectations from the get-go, right? So everybody is fully aligned. Yes. One thing also that I just remembered hearing you all speak, one thing that changed, because I think we've all had a bad experience with outsourcing, right? At one point in time over decades of work, is I learned to bring in, if I'm outsourcing marketing or sales, to bring them into my internal team, so into my weekly meeting, right? And that changes things night and day, because then they see your conversations, you're looking at the same numbers. There's not this gap where you're having a separate meeting from them. They actually then, like we've all been saying, become a part of your team, that extension of your team that we all say we are. That actually helps it come to fruition. If there's one tip that each of you have for the audience in outsourcing, either when to outsource, how to make it a success, what's one thing that you would tell everybody on the call to do? Let's see, I'll start with you, John Norton.
Yeah, I would say the things we've really been talking about: make sure that they feel like they're absolutely part of the team.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure that you think about how you would develop that position internally, and make sure that they have access to the same training, the same tools, the same content, the same rigor in making sure that a W-2 employee would have, right? And that you give them every experience that you would. Jane, you may or may not know this, and I don't even know if it's appropriate, but your memoryBlue team has been in trade shows with us. They've been on a trade show floor with us, right?
Yeah.
What better way to have the experience than talking to customers as they walk up and hearing how others overcome objections and those sorts of things. So we basically, said, we want you to be as involved as you want to be. And what we found is a strong willingness to dig right in and go as far as they could. And we're getting the payback for that for sure.
Love that. Uniting wherever we can. Whitney, how about you? One tip for the audience.
Yeah, one tip is, I would say, it's the other side of the coin of investment, is you can't sell something you don't buy. And so whenever you're outsourcing to a partner, especially SDR, marketing, anything on that front, if who you're partnering with, if you do not see them leaning in, if you do not see the light bulb moment and they're not getting it, nothing they're going to do on your behalf will work. So you need to make sure they fully buy the message, the mission, the message, the space, the reason, the value themselves, so that they can actually then forward sell that to customers.
Yes. And it's important to give that feedback, right? Because everybody's human. We're talking about like the business of people here, right? So if you have somebody working in your account in any way, shape, or form, and they're underperforming, or they don't have that curiosity you were both talking about, giving that feedback as soon as possible, so either they can be trained up or replaced, right? And bring in somebody else, which is the other benefit of outsourcing, is that quick option to be able to bring in somebody else if something's not working.
Yeah. And we all feel that moment whenever suddenly people get it, that aha moment with our internal teams. If you can get that from the beginning, whenever you're outsourcing anything with go-to-market, that's how the experiments work. And then you can start caring about results kind of to that point.
Love it.
And not just the signals and intent you get in the beginning.
Fitz, how about you? One thing that they can do or make sure they don't do, the audience.
Yeah, I'll double down with what we just talked about to start, which would be essentially onboard them like an FTE. I think we all kind of agree with that. The other thing I would say that's been helpful in outsourced situations is get them on a cancellation call, right? That's going to make you uncomfortable, because you're going to learn just as much. We focus so much on why we're great and the client should hire us. Why do they fire us? Oftentimes we don't talk to an SDR about why they fire us, and let them hear it from the client as to what expectation wasn't met, or where they're going, or what's the other option. If they leave you, I always like to say, if a dollar doesn't come to us, where's it go? Okay. And so the quicker they can understand that, by the way, you learn that at trade shows. John probably found that out the hard way, that you get people that come by too and say, it's not all that it said it was, okay, good. Tell me more. I want to lean into that. Right. And I think that's helped us get better connected with folks that aren't on the payroll.
I love that. It's the same, bringing people in that you're working with externally, bringing them into win-loss calls, right? Like win-loss analysis.
Or save a deal, watch what we do when we're like, shaking and baking. That helps.
Love it. Matt, how about you? One tip for the audience.
I would say, if there's a tension that you're feeling that you need to do something, and then you're not taking that action, whether it be outsourcing or insourcing or kind of whatever it is, I guess don't let fear and emotion keep you still, right? Figure out how to have the conversation so that you can find the alignment, so that you have the courage to sort of move forward, right? Because standing still in 2026 is just not an option.
Yeah. Love that.
And I'd add one more thing that just occurred to me, that is something that we're doing really good together, and that would be scorecarding them, right? So look, I have a bag of money to spend, okay? And I'm comparing we run something called Pipeline Council every month, which is everything conversion rates from every channel, right? And whether it's digital events, cold outreach, or alliances, for example, I know the conversion rate of every single one, and I'm letting everyone know, and they attend those meetings. So when I say $1 gets me 8 in new ACV, you're getting me 6. How do we get to 8? Because otherwise my money is going to start moving this direction, right? And being upfront and helping them understand and helping us help them get there, so that their value can be elevated. That's something that's worked really well for us.
Huge. And sharing those numbers. John, you are a PE team's dream. Dollar in, how many dollars out by channel. Love that. And similarly, I wanted to add one more tip too, is sharing those results. So if you know those conversion rates, share them, but also in every role that you're outsourcing, okay, we're bringing this in, this is coming in, what is it netting out to? what is coming out, like share those. If there's not access to your CRM, or like share that however you can, so that they're seeing the follow through, or seeing, maybe we can identify a trend where why something isn't following through in a certain space or with a certain title, and sharing that. So get it going all the way through. Like I think, John, you shared an example earlier where you were getting meetings, but they weren't closing. That has to be shared, right? And discussed. So knowing that the revenue at the end of the day that's coming through.
Yeah, you're double the meeting rate, but the conversion rate to new opportunity is half. So what's going on there, right?
Exactly. Yep. On the flip side, this might be a little more controversial for everybody. Is there any role in your mind that should never be outsourced, that you are gung ho on, this needs to stay in-house at all times? Who wants to take it first? Let's see if anyone has a top of mind title that comes up.
I mean, I would offer, because I do have something top of mind. And the way I think about that is, what things do I want to, what functions do I want to try to create competitive advantage with, right?
Yeah.
So, I think about, creating high performing revenue teams that are highly tenured and that can grow their quota every year, that kind of thing. I don't want to outsource that. I think our go-to-market can be a very strong competitive edge. We've seen companies like Cisco, for example. You see in the Cisco sales force, how they operate. That's a core part of their go-to-market. They're never going to outsource that. I think about customer success and what it means to a SaaS business. You don't probably want to do that. You want to make that a really high value area. And I think about our alliances team, which basically creates partnerships and channel for us. That's so much about relationships. I want to keep those relationships, right? So those are three areas that come to mind to me.
Yeah, good one. Matt, how about you? Have you seen anything, or do you think everything can be outsourced?
I think that there's just kind of piling on to what John Norton said. I think that there's if you can create something that is the sustainable thing that you don't want to change, there might be short little blips where you just want to bring somebody in to level something up, right? As opposed to a long-term interim executive, for example. But I really resonate with what he said about things like customer success, right? And those things that are just so customer facing that unless you can afford to bring in that outsourced so intimately that they are part of your DNA. So a great example is a lot of agencies will use a 1099 contractor for years and years and years and years. And it's just the financial arrangement that makes it look different to the outside world. But if you're not going to invest in that fractional executive to where they're woven into the fabric of your business, then that doesn't make sense.
Yep. I love that. It's funny because I thought of this question because I probably, even earlier this year, I would have thought I would keep product marketing in-house always, because very close to marketing and the competitor, and you just need to have that intel in-house. But to your point, Matt, there's always an opportunity to bring somebody in who's an expert at setting up systems here that can level up the team. I do very much think that you need to have a PMM of some sort in-house in every type of company. But if you bring in a coach or somebody who can help level that up, it sets you up for success. So I think there's a way to bring in somebody to help regardless. Like Fitz said earlier, there's you can bring somebody in to help during good times and during not so great times, or times where you're in a learning period. But even in the good times, to level somebody up there.
Yeah.
But John, I love what you said too about partnerships, because that is a tough one, because that's very much relationship based. I wonder if there is a side, Matt, you might know this, a side where you can bring in somebody to level up on the partnership side.
Yeah, I get into a lot of situations where they're not looking for a fractional CRO, where I might go in and partner with the existing CRO just to bring in something new. So the last 2 years, it's been AI, right? We know that if we don't build this capability, we're eventually in trouble. And so I might go in temporarily in order to level that up, enable that seller with a new set of capabilities, and then I go off into the sunset.
Mm-hmm. Love that. One more question on the stage when companies should bring somebody in for various aspects. Is there a point where, and Matt, you might be best to kick this part off, but where they should fix what's in-house, like what's broken or the challenge, address that first before bringing someone on, because it could just magnify the issues bringing someone on? Or what do you think about the stage that people bring in help and assistance?
I was looking at it through the other lens, which is, example, our CFOs might be the CFO fractionally for 10 companies, and they're all growth stage startup, SaaS tech companies, et cetera. Just because you need a controller and you need an accountant, but if you're not like trying to do investor or try to get a bridge loan or trying to level up to get off of Excel into QuickBooks or QuickBooks into NetSuite or something like that. But I don't need it 5 days a week, and I don't want to spend X dollars in order to do that, but I need that firepower even as a small company. So that's the one that sort of resonated with me when you asked the question.
Amazing. And anyone else, is there a stage? Like, let's say you are, Whitney, you just come in as CEO and you're evaluating the team. Is there a situation where you should not jump the gun and go hire some additional outsourced help? Or is that kind of, do you see it as a quick, good interim for that testing that you've talked about?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting because, again, you have to think about what is the purpose and why am I bringing this person in? And so you don't want to bring someone into scale if you don't actually have things sorted. So if you're still refining your ICP, if you're still defining who is that target customer, if you're still trying to understand the voice of the customer, do not bring in somebody that's here to accelerate. Instead, bring in someone who's here to advise, to help you capture that signal and help you hone and refine. So I think that's part of it, is it's like right tool, right job. So you have to think about that if you're bringing in somebody, whether outsource or insource, truly the only difference is, are they an FTE on my payroll and I'm responsible for the healthcare, or is it a 1099 and they're handling the taxes themselves, right? And so outside of that, if you onboard like an FTE, if you treat like an extension of the team, then the moment of, is it too soon? It's, what is my gap? And what do I need to shore that up? And then that informs, who am I bringing into the conversation? Advisory services, or somebody who's good at execution, or somebody who's good at scale. Is it a person? Is it an org and a team? memoryBlue example, why we partnered with memoryBlue for SDR was because we needed a handful of people, but I wanted the culture that I've seen successfully work on sales floors, where you have dozens, hundreds of people working together, getting rejected together, learning together, doing the hard job together, celebrating the wins together. I can't provide that if I only bring 3 people on. So I wanted that culture of doing the hardest part of sales for the people we bring on to do that with a team. And then get the signals back to refine our ICP. At some point, we'll look to bring that in-house, and then we'll come again and say, now we're here to scale and have an entire, larger operation.
Yeah. I think you just hit a really great point, Whitney, of it's not about like outsource versus insource, like hire, but it's, what do you need right now? Do you need an exec to clean things up and strategize? Do you need to talk to TechCXO and get somebody who can fix some key high level problems or challenges and get that straight first? Or are you ready to scale and to execute with the existing messaging and ICP definitions, et cetera? So the timing of where your issues are and where you need to focus.
Yes, it would be the equivalent of even bringing on like advisory board members. So think of like that. That's kind of the optionality in front of you, is whenever you are trying to say, how do I crack that next phase of growth? I think that it was you at the beginning who said, what gets you here doesn't get you there. And so you have to continue to build this board, this team, this growth engine, and who those players are. It's really just first starting with identifying, what do I actually need? So then I solve the right problem. And then insource, outsource, that's a function of, I've identified the problem I need to solve.
Yeah. And what budget do you have and where does it
Yeah.
lie? Yeah.
Yeah. And how do I use John's math to turn $1 into 8 and then be frustrated if
Exactly.
it's not 10? So
Call John.
how do I get that playbook?
Love it.
Yeah.
It reminds me of, and I love that I don't think we have touched on AI yet, or maybe I mentioned it in passing, but I love that we've gone 40 minutes without talking AI. This is a first in webinars for 2026, but it reminds me of the whole AI thing of garbage in, garbage out, right?
Mhm.
And making sure that you're ready to set things up and to scale. But a quick question for all of you. This is out of left field, so let me know if you can't answer. But how have you seen AI changing things and changing how you see outsourcing? Because now there's opportunities, right, to bring in AI. We're seeing AI impact a lot of our clients' teams, right, where they're replacing some people internally with AI, for better, for worse. In some cases, they go right back to rehiring the human. But curious how you've seen AI change this in any way, shape, or form. Go to market. Who wants to jump in? The AI topic.
I'll jump in real quick. It's speed. It's helping everybody make decisions faster, create the deck faster, create the ideal customer profile faster, use the data to accelerate, okay, what do we do next? But the human intelligence is just as important as we're all learning, right? You're seeing about a 15% correction in the market, at least on the tech businesses, right? Will that continue to go down further? Will it level out? We don't really know, but what we are seeing is they're getting to making informed, data-driven decisions a heck of a lot faster than they were without AI. And they're starting to ask the question of, can AI do this before we needed to greenlight another hire or greenlight another outsourced SDR? And so I think we're all surely aware of that, and paying close attention to it. But I don't think it's a question of, how much will AI, change our businesses? It's going to change every business.
Mhm.
It's just how much are we going to let it, and what level are we going to commit to it, right? And then how much are we going to wait and see, or jump in and say, no, the technology's here, it's been here, let's allow it to make us better versions of ourselves. And I think at least that's what we're seeing in our business, and my analysis of this is in a big way. I mean, I'm kind of squarely in this topic in my world, but just in my business. So for me, it's a little bit different. We really have to understand where things are headed and how it's going to affect our business and our clients and whatnot. The reality is that I can't find a scenario where it's not.
Yeah.
Even in I've had conversations with some of my YPO buddies. I mean, you're going to go in and have a much different relationship with your doctor. Think about that, right?
Yeah.
Like your doctor will be totally different. It'll be driven by AI. And by the way, you're going to want it to. You're going to want it to. You're going to want it to be informed by AI, and then layer in the human intelligence of the doctor and their expertise. Why would you not? There's too much data out there. And for far too long, it hasn't been used effectively because it stays siloed. Same thing, at least in our business, we're seeing. So I could go on for a long time with AI.
That's fascinating. We'll have a whole nother webinar just on this.
It's a fascinating dynamic happening right in front of I mean, we're in a pivotal moment.
Yeah.
And we're living it. So it's, the textbooks, new chapters in textbooks are being made right now that our kids will learn in college about, the revolution of AI.
It's exciting. I think, and I think I for a long time, I felt very privileged to be surrounded by people that are builders that have ideas. AI allows you to say, well, I have an idea, I'm going to build it. I try it, and you can prototype so quickly. And then again, you then have to have frameworks, harnesses to make sure it's secure and then it scales. But and I'm sorry, Jane, I did at the very beginning introduce myself as we build AI centers of excellence. So I burst that bubble.
Oh, there we go.
You're good though. But the reality is 2019, pre-COVID, we went to a trade show, made t-shirts that said, life is short, automate the boring stuff. That remains true.
Yes.
So whenever I look for applications of AI, I start with the most frustrating, manual, menial task that everybody hates doing. Let's figure that out. And then let's talk about force multipliers. Then let's talk about augmenting teams. Then let's talk about accelerating initiatives. Because first you have to have that relief and that time creation, time back in your pocket. The human brain's free to actually think about what matters and what cares. Then AI becomes this kind of creative force to drive you forward. if you start with, oh, what a phenomenal way to get rid of all of my human employees, you've lost the game because you're playing the wrong one. Like, that's not the way to win.
Yes.
Yeah.
Whitney, when you said automate the boring, the first thing I thought of and is on my list for the next AI project is automating the board deck.
Yeah, maybe not the boring stuff, the high anxiety stuff.
Yeah. But Fitz, the word you use that I really grabbed onto is speed, right? And there's two elements I'll talk about speed. The first is we're actually thinking about do we outsource expertise associated with AI because we can't wait. The game is being played right now, and 6 months later, you're too late, right? So how do we get speed into everything we're doing in AI? We're very, very strong initiatives around it. The entire company has access to Cloud Enterprise and is being challenged every day to AI everything they're doing, and we're measuring it. So it's really important. One of the things that we're seeing, in addition, John, which you've all talked about, which I would echo, is the level of personalization that we're able to bring to the table. What we sell has to be sold at the C-level within an organization. And we do know that C-levels, including people on this call, don't answer their phone much if they don't know who's calling, right? So it's a challenge. But what we found is levels of personalization that let us get deeper and deeper and deeper into their top 3 initiatives and why, and everything that's going on in their social and all that, and personalize those messages. They do work, and we're getting better conversion rates out of AI doing that. Something that it would take a seller all day to do right?
Yeah.
And we can do 30 of those in a morning now. So that's what's really seeming to pay off for us, and I'm really excited about right now.
Yeah. And I don't answer my phone, but I do read my voicemails. So I feel like there's a lot of value in there. Well, this also reminds me. So when I said earlier that our conversation brought up AI in my mind for the garbage in, garbage out, it's also that a lot of times people have this directive, right? To like their actual goal for the company is to start using AI, which is such a crap goal. You have to start with like what Matt keeps saying. What is the actual problem here? What are we trying to solve? Like, what are we identifying? And then find out how we fix that. And that needs to be more of the directive. Like, this is the problem. How are we fixing it? Let's see if we can leverage AI for it. It's the same as insourcing, outsourcing. It's what is the problem? What is the fastest and best way for us to try to attack this first? Like, very, very similar parallel here.
I'll give you a super high level goal. Okay. That is not like this job to be done, but it gets down to how companies are being valued now versus, especially SaaS companies, versus where they were 2 or 3 years ago. Right. And revenue per employee is a big deal in SaaS companies. Right. And just about every company that is in SaaS isn't ready to be sold at the multiple that they want to be sold for because their revenue to employee isn't right. Our job is at IntraDM is to get our revenue to, per employee, which is somewhere around 350,000 employee, which is pretty good in SaaS, to over 500,000, 600,000, 700,000 employee, and leverage AI across the entire business to make it happen.
See, perfect, clear goal for it instead of just leverage AI as that directive. But that's also a great reason to outsource, right? In different ways, the headcount. So the math behind the scenes and what boards care about in that revenue per employee number for sure, depending how it's calculated at your company. I know we are just about at time, so I want to first thank everybody for your perspective. I'm sure we could go on and down the AI rabbit hole. Of course, we can do a part 2 with that. But if everybody is interested in chatting with you more on specific topics that you covered, where should they reach out to you? Is LinkedIn the best?
Yeah, that works.
With you, and then we can go through.
I'm in it all the time.
Yeah. We'll put in the chat everybody's LinkedIn so everyone can go and connect and chat. But thank you all for joining. It's been a pleasure. I have some things I need to go do and check out and messaging to change. So thank you all for your insight. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for having us.
Okay, and we'll cut here. But one thing is, if
we actually left.
Oh yeah, all good. I think we need to make sure that everything. Here, if I end recording, let's see.